It's the mother-loving Detroit real estate podcast. We still waiting on the brother Romeo to show up. You know, that's what they call me, Bentley Billy these days. Big Bentley Billy is what they call me. So we're going to be talking about some really cool things right now. Detroit is one of the hottest markets in the country. Why? Because that's where the opportunity is. And you want to get in before the opportunity becomes crowded. You want to get in before everybody knows it's an opportunity. You want to get in while there's still opportunity where you can still find deals. Granted, when we first started buying homes in Detroit, man, you could get homes for dirt cheap. $1,000, $10,000, it didn't matter. They just wanted to get the homes renovated. These days, it's a little bit more difficult, but you can still get homes for a lot less expensive than if you were to be buying them in Texas or Georgia or California for sure. Shout out to Anomaly Woman. We out here. So this question says, is Detroit the only place? I don't know. I told we talking about Detroit today. I don't know. I think there's other opportunities out there for sure, depending on your knowledge of the market. But one thing that I think is important is that you find a place and you just stick with it. Because if you're trying to find all these different spots and wherever the next opportunity is, there's opportunity where you are. If you ever read the book, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, he talks about this concept called Acres of Diamonds. Acres of Diamonds, where there's this dude and he wanted to get some diamonds. He was like a diamond miner. And he lived in some country in Africa. And he was like going all over the country, or the continent rather, looking for diamonds. And he went to this country, this country, this country, this country, searching for diamonds. Never found any diamonds. And then some guy comes and he goes to the original land that this person was at. And he digs down deeper than the other guy was willing to dig. And he finds just a plethora of diamonds. And the moral of that story is that usually the diamonds are where you are. It's your responsibility to find the value in the land that you're in. So if you're in North Carolina, by all means, there's probably some diamonds there. Quite honestly, there's diamonds in California. I think me and my limited thinking, I didn't take advantage of the opportunity because I felt like I was priced out because it's very expensive to invest in California. It's possible, but it's very expensive. A lot of times it just takes finding the deal. So a lot of real estate investing, in my opinion, is deal finding. You need to find deals. No matter what market you're in, you need to find deals. What makes a deal? Something that's discounted compared to the current market value. That is a deal. If you can find a deal that's discounted compared to the current market value, it doesn't matter where you at. You can still make money. So, yeah, for me, it just made sense for us to go to Detroit. It's been working out somewhat, but quite honestly, I'm looking to bring my talents back home as well. Kind of getting worn out. But for newer investors there's still opportunity there. There's still opportunity in the space. You can find some deals if you talk to the right wholesaler, and Romeo is one of those people. He just tends to be late. He just tends to show up when he wants to, you know. Hopefully he shows up in the next 10 minutes because I could be taking a nap. I got another call at 6. But if you guys have any questions about Detroit, what markets to invest in, what contractors to work with, what things to expect, we can definitely hash those out. That's the whole point of this, is to educate everybody on the Detroit real estate market. And also it's to kind of increase the value of Detroit real estate as well. Because I believe that the way, and we can't let other people control the narrative that is Detroit. Detroit is a predominantly African-American city with a lot of African-American business owners, a lot of African-American real estate developers, and a lot of times the greatness that is Detroit gets overshadowed by like the crime. They highlight the crime. And quite honestly, in all the time that I've been there, I haven't seen any crime. I haven't seen any real craziness, but I've seen a lot of greatness. I've seen a whole lot of greatness. And so the purpose of this podcast really is to highlight more of the good things that are going on in Detroit. Because if we change the narrative, we can change the values. If we highlight all the amazing projects that are coming to Detroit, if we highlight all of the amazing people that are in Detroit, if we highlight all of the dope wholesalers and the dope landlords and all these really cool things and the projects that are coming to Detroit, for some reason it's saying you can't join. I don't know why it's saying that. But if we highlight that, then we get to determine the values. I'm very big on the what can we do as opposed to what they're going to do for us. What can we do to change the narrative? What can we do to increase the values? What can we do to make communities safer? What can we do to make communities cleaner? What can we do to make, to have more maybe grocery stores instead of just like 99-cent stores and fast food? What can we do? What can we do? We can do a lot of things. We can do a lot of things, and we're going to do a lot of things. And the first thing is starting with this podcast. So I keep trying to join them, but it's not letting me join them. There we go. There we go. So welcome to the Detroit Real Estate Podcast with my co-host, Romeo Rowe. The goal is to also bring on some other guests on the show so that they can share their stories, because you guys need to also see the dope people that are doing dope things. So, of course, I know about Ashley, Detroit investor. She owns like 1 million properties in Detroit right now. She started when it was not glamorous to buy in Detroit. And she bought her first home. She lived out of that home. And then from there, it's just been off to the races. Now she's doing so many other things in real estate. She's in lending. She's in construction management. She's a property manager. She's doing everything. She's selling deals. Of course, you know, Asia Denson's out there. Asia doesn't really like me right now, but he's still out there making moves, you know? And I feel like you gotta shout out people who are making moves, whether they like you or not. As a Black community, we can't afford to be writing folks off, man. We don't got that many of us doing really solid, dope things to be over here like, I don't mess with that person. You know, Romeo's tried to write me off before too. I just keep calling him. We can't write me off. Anyway, where you at these days? Where you at right now, brother?
My bad, I'm a little late. I had a dope idea. My boy has a rental property that he's actually probably going to turn into like a headquarters. I was the plan was to go live from there, but had some issues with the lockbox. So I had to come all the way back to the crib so I could.
That's dope.
That was the plan. But
so you got headquarters. That means when I come out there, we can just record content there. Like it. I like it. So what's going on? What's new, man? How's the wholesale life going for you? How many deals you
doing? None this week, man. It's been slow, but we got some plans in the making to change that around.
What was the most?
Say it again.
What was the most recent deal that you closed?
We did one in Virginia Park. And
what is Virginia Park? Is that like there's strong values?
Yeah, definitely. There? The ARV on the one that we just sold, it's probably like between 170 to 200,000.
200,000.
Yeah,
200,000 ARV. How much did you sell it to the guy for?
He paid 70, and they're probably gonna put like less than 50 in. Yeah.
So it's in good condition.
The roof needs to be replaced, but they're gonna, I think, either a quarter or a half sheet of drywall. They're gonna go over the existing drywall in the kitchen and the living room. The one issue, which stuff happens that you can't anticipate, so it was obvious that it was like water damage in the basement because you could see the deterioration on the floors. But post closing, he ended up getting 3-4 inches of water a few days after closing, and then as of last week, it's like a foot of water down there. So, like, water out the basement because he's having me assist him with finding, subs to get in there to do some of the work. So I got to find somebody to pump that water out the basement.
So in a situation like that, what's the issue? Is that like the walls? Is that the sewer situation? Because I mean, it could be. I mean, the water's getting in the house, so you got to keep water from coming in the house. But also, it's not draining. And in Detroit, usually there's a drain in the basement that all the water that goes in there can drain into. So it might have a water line issue as well.
Got to replace the gutters. There's no downspouts going away from the house, so I think definitely having some downspouts going at least 3 feet away from the house. That's code. Sealing the base of the brick, you know, I think that would help as well. Sealing that. What else? I think it's just a combination of things to really prevent that water. And then definitely snaking it after you pump it, then snaking the drain a few times.
How much does it cost to pump the water out of a basement? It can't be that expensive.
I'm still trying to get a quote. It's not everybody's so busy. I got one guy who does it, but he said he's backed up until July. And he said he would still go over there with me, but then at the last minute he said, I got a sink to install.
A sink. So one of the downsides about Detroit is a lot of these contractors are hard to work with. I'm not going to say that they're just, sometimes they're hard to work with. But what I would recommend for you guys is when you get some good people, hold on to them. I'm even of the mindset is if you get some good people and they kind of overcharge you a little bit, that's okay. If they are efficient, consistent, if they get the work done. Because if you're calling around like I do a lot of the times, trying to find the cheapest person to do the work, man, weeks will go by, especially if you're doing this long distance. Weeks will go by, and no progress will be made on your property.
It takes time to locate these people, and then it takes time for them to get out to the property. Then it takes time for them to give you quotes. So you might spend a week or 2 weeks calling multiple people, and then they might take 2 or 3 days or a week to get out to the property. Then they're probably going to take 3 to 4 days. Well, it's probably going to take them 3 or 4 days to get you some quotes. And then you got to take days to evaluate all the quotes that you got. So it's like it can become a lengthy process. So the way to streamline that is, which is not going to happen other than trial and error, but the way to streamline that is just to rely on the same few people, you know, but basically have like a plan A, plan B. So you can't rely on, like each trade you need done, you probably need 2, 3, 4 people per trade. But the first 2 you call on the regular.
Yeah. One of the things I would recommend you guys is keep a list of the people that you're calling, because it's just going to help you and organize. Because if you just go down Google and make a bunch of phone calls and you're not keeping track of who you call, what the name of the company is, what they said, what their estimate might have been, or what have you, you have to start from scratch every single time you need a new plumber. Start from scratch every time you need a new roofer. Whereas if you just had a list of just roofers available that you can just drum down the list, that makes it way easier, because now you're just referencing your list instead of going to Google, because a lot of these names aren't really distinguishable. Sometimes you'll get referrals, so they don't even have a website or they don't even have a searchable Google. So keep your contractors organized. That's one thing that I've been telling my people to do is, like, as we're calling people, I need you to take notes. I need you to put it on a Google Doc so we all have access to it, so we can all update it and we can all change it. And so when you're doing that, it just makes your business more efficient. So that's just a certain system to keep things going. But that's
I've noticed,
so
especially like when you use an actual company, like I had to snake the basement at my rental property. It wasn't flooding. It was just a little bit of water. So it didn't flood, but I needed that remedied. And some people are feasible with their price on one line item and expensive for another. So the guy who snaked the drain or whatever, they only charge me like, they snake both drains. So it's usually like $100 for the first drain, and then I think like $75 for the second. But he ended up charging me $150 for both. And that made all the water drain. And then in the process of that, my furnace went out, but it was really, I think they call it the igniter switch. So basically it's what it replaced. the company that I use actually does that as well. But he told me, like, bro, you probably want to find somebody else to get this done, because we'll probably charge you to be honest, we'll probably charge you $400 or $500 to do it, because, you know, all I got to do is charge what's on the books. But this isn't really a $400 or $500 thing. Like, you can get this done for like under 200.
Very important, you guys. Detroit gets a lot of rain, and it's not something that I knew. It gets a ton of rain. That's why they have a lot of good water up there. And if you're getting a drain snaked, which is a very common thing, especially if you have tenants who are using non-flushable wipes that they think are flushable, you're going to get a lot of backups. And so you got to be careful with these people who are going to charge.
My contractor is the one who flushed the wipes. Like, you didn't know. My contractor flushed the wipes. That's what gave me that issue. I'm like, you don't know that? To not flush wipes in the toilet.
It's a very common thing out there, guys. So if you have tenants, I was like, in my lease, I'm writing, you cannot flush wipes down the toilet, firstly. And secondly, if you do, and we find that the reason why it was backed up was because of flushable wipes, you will be billed for this transaction.
We can have a few topics today, but I want you to touch on that a little bit, because it's a misconception. So I think, like, it's popular culture to get into real estate and stocks and all that now, and a lot of people are paying attention to it. But, like, you know, growing up, like, you would think that people would be pro assets, pro generational wealth, pro business. But when it comes to real estate, like, a lot of people, I wouldn't say they deter you, but that people don't really promote and encourage you to get into real estate and be a landlord, you know, because they're like, oh, you got to pay property taxes, you know, all the costs that you know that you're going to incur. You know what I mean? People don't look at it like that. They just say it's going to cost this and cost that. And tenants don't stay. They don't pay. They leave at the drop of a hat. So, you know, all of these things that you can technically budget for. Like, so can you talk about certain things that are probably in your lease that other landlords may not have in their lease? Because some people, like, will allow the tenant to do any and everything in their property, and they got to pay that cost. And that shouldn't really be the case. Like, if you put a hole in the wall day 3 of the lease, and then you do something to damage the floors, and then you do something, then I got to snake the drain. You know what I mean? Like, you could have 3 or 4 instances occur in a 2-week span, and who's supposed to foot that bill? Not me.
Yeah. Man, I think that if it's something that the tenant causes, the tenant is responsible for it. So if the tenant is punching walls, they're responsible for that. You might not get to it until out or whatever that looks like. But, like, that's why these days I'm very big deposit to move in. So originally we were doing, like, first month's rent, and the deposit would be, like, double the rent. So we would say, like, all right, if it's $1,000 to move in, it's $1,000 for that rent, and it's $1,000 for the deposit. Now I'm like, nah, we need to double that. Why? Because a lot of these tenants are leaving the properties in such poor shape that you have to do so much work to the property that you end up losing a lot of money. So, for example, a tenant moved out, floors crap, walls crap, pretty much those things, and somebody will quote you like $7,000 to fix those. They might quote you like $2,000 to paint, whatever else to replace the floors. And I think that's nonsense. That's why I came out there and I did it myself. But I think that you have to at least double that deposit. So that's one of the things that I want to do. Another thing that I do is, like, if it's a repair that's less than like $100, $200, they're responsible for it, depending on what it is. Something that's like a health or safety issue. One other thing that we wrote into the lease is they were responsible for lawn care and snow removal. Why? Because I'm not out there and I don't have time to do that. Granted, now that I have a better system for getting my lawns cut, I kind of I might take that on, because you don't want a lot of tenants don't like to mow lawns. They might need a lawnmower. So, like, I was in Atlanta, and you can tell what's a rental property by who takes care of their lawn and who doesn't take care of their lawn. Tenants, their lawn's all long and just looks all crazy, and it looks all just not good for the community. And then people who actually own their home, they're cutting their lawn. So I have that in there mostly for the snow part, because I wanted to pass the liability of the snow onto them. I didn't want to be responsible for snow. I wanted them to have that liability, because, I mean, if you have snow and they slip or they fall, then you can be in trouble for that. One of the things that I would say before we went on to the lease thing, because I did have something valuable to say. I forgot what it was, though. Dang. Those are just some things that I include in there. But, this is what I was going to say, is I was talking to my uncle, and my uncle owned a rental property in College Park that was giving him headaches. He hated it. The tenants were terrible. It was in a terrible community, and it was in East Point, Atlanta. East Point is near the airport in Atlanta. And he was like, I sold it. I had to get rid of it. I was just tired of it. And he was like, man, but if I would have held on to it, we'd be sitting pretty right now because everything in Atlanta just shot to the moon. And so what I took from that conversation was having rental properties and managing tenants is not fun. It sucks. But you know what also sucks? Working a job. You know what also works? Commuting. You know what also sucks? Having to request time off from your boss. And so we got to learn how to do things that suck. And being a landlord sucks, but you got to do it. Why? Because the long-term benefits far outweigh the opposite. What's the opposite of being a landlord? Not being a landlord, not getting equity, not getting appreciation, not having something that you can leave to your kids. That's the opposite. So yeah, I don't like tenants and I don't like being a landlord, but I do like the fact that rents are continuing to appreciate or can continue to go up. So we used to rent properties for like $600 and $700. Now you can rent them for like $1,000 and $1,200, which is always the true value of these properties. And so you're constantly getting a pay raise by holding on to these properties. And so really you just got to put your head in the sand. The people that get wealthy in this country do the dirty stuff. They do the dirty stuff. They open up businesses in places people don't want to open up businesses in. A lot of the reasons why a lot of immigrants own the businesses in Black communities because they're willing to take that risk and put it there. A lot of us are too scared to open up a business in our own community. A lot of us are too scared. We're like, I'm not putting no business in the hood. Why? And then we wonder why they got all the business in the hood because they just willing to do it. And so that's all I would say is I would say like it's not fun. It's not something that you want to do, but it's necessary.
Yeah, it's like give or take. Like I'm passionate about real estate, but it's certain things that I don't look forward to doing, but you have to do. And even the things you enjoy doing, like it's not going to be just roses every day. That's the thing. People think like a relationship. You know what I mean? Like a relationship or a marriage, you're not going to have the time of your life every single day of your life. Some people may argue that, but you know, it's pros and cons, but it's like the overall situation, the overall experience, you know, is it favorable to you? Like you might enjoy rehabbing houses. You might enjoy picking out materials, going to Home Depot, but that's probably like a new thing. You know, once you do it enough, you know, it can become a hassle, but you might enjoy doing that. You might enjoy transforming these properties, but what you are not going to enjoy, or you might, is micromanaging adults. Like literally, like dealing with contractors is like babysitting. Like you got to be on your P's and Q's because you can't really expect other people to be on time and do what they said they're going to do if you don't. And it's like you literally, like, I know a couple people on here, like my boy Chris and Israel, they know for sure, like, people, and then everybody's busy. Everybody's biting off more than they can chew. So people are like rehabbing 5, 6 houses, got rental properties, and everybody has a lot on their to-do list. But you literally got to like, it's like owning the daycare, really.
Right. I would say that I would say that you got to do the unfun stuff, but I think that eventually what you want to do is you want to bring it all in-house. So you want to bring in a property manager in-house. You want to bring in a project manager in-house. So with my flip, I have somebody who shows up and he makes sure that things are going in line. I can't do it anymore, but I don't want to just like hire it out to another company. I want to start building these roles inside of the company. What's going on, Chris? Is start building these roles inside of the company. So for example, it's like you don't want to delegate your property management out, because if you delegate the property management out, what's going to happen is you're going to bring somebody in who's not vested in your property. They don't care if the tenants love it. They don't care if the tenants stay, they leave, they kick walls in the door. They don't care because they get paid either way. But you got to bring in somebody who's on your side. And so ultimately, you might have to self-manage for a while. And then what you're going to do is you're going to build your own management team in-house. The same thing with your project management when you're doing your flips. But it's all necessary. It's not fun, but it's necessary. And so there's things that we have to get used to as a culture that are going to build wealth, allowed us to leave things to our heirs, create income for our heirs, that we have to do that. One of the things I was also going to say is stop looking for cash flow from these rental properties. Because when you become so in love with the cash flow, you can start fighting your tenants for your profits.
Don't just say nothing like that. You got to expand on that, my brother.
This is something that I experienced. I experienced a situation where a lot of tenants, what they'll do is they'll put in maintenance requests at the end of the month, right when like the rent's due. And you can kind of get frustrated, and you can kind of take that out on them because like they're essentially constraining your cash flow. And a lot of times these tenants, like they're like, I don't want you making no money off of me. And so they'll figure out ways to kind of try to take money out of your pocket. And so what I'm finding is like, as you're bringing in cash flow from your properties or revenue from your properties, set that aside, don't touch it, leave it there to improve your properties. So not only are you doing maintenance that's requested, you're also doing preventative maintenance. Not only are you doing maintenance that's requested, you're also adding value. You might be adding another roof, might be painting the exterior. You might be upgrading things inside of the house in terms of electric or HVAC. Like, I think those things are important because you're going to get your money. You're going to get your money. You're going to get your money on the back end. You're going to ultimately get your money as the property increases in value, especially if you're reinvesting your rent. But when you're fighting your tenant for the profit off of that cash flow, it's just going to lead to frustration. And so I don't really think that that's the way to go about it these days. I mean, it can be frustrating, man. Have you experienced anything like that? Or what's your take on that?
Yeah, the tenants kind of have the power right now. I haven't experienced that, but it's bound to come. I think that's probably inevitable. The more units you get.
Where are the deals at in Detroit?
They're everywhere. You want me to name the neighborhoods that are attractive, or?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we've done that before. Where deals?
They everywhere, but they're not everywhere. So lately, what I've noticed, what I've been telling my partner is that like now, a lot of the people that I contacted a year or two ago, like now are listing their homes with a realtor. Like so the houses that weren't valuable a couple years ago because of the area, like you said, the true value, right? Because you know what's on paper and what's on Zillow isn't always the actual true value of the property. But a lot of those houses where the value wasn't where it needed to be, or the condition was just so messed up that because of the value that they knew nobody would buy. A lot of those sales, let's just put it like that. A lot of those sales people are trying to sell now. So, you know, people are trying to sell the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they're trying to sell more of the bad and ugly now. And people are trying to sell land bank condition homes that they privately own, but they're trying to sell them for $20,000, $30,000, and it's like, I can give you $5,000. And it's a lot of houses with foundation issues I've been coming across lately.
How do you tell there's something a foundation issue?
Well, my process when I go to a house, we always inspect the exterior first. So you look at you go and look at the foundation of the house from the outside. You will look to see if there's any holes in the ground near the brick or the siding. You can look through the back and see if the house has shifted. Those are a few things from the outside. From the inside, when you walk in, you can look at the floor, see if the floors are sloped, see if the door frames are sloped. You will go in the basement and look at the walls. Are the walls bowing out? You know, is the wall even throughout, or does it look like it's about to collapse? Those are the main things. So looking at the base of the house, looking at the basement wall, floors, and the door frames.
That makes sense. And foundation issues are important because they're very expensive to repair. And so that can kind of make yeah, not too many people that do them. I know one guy who does them, and that's all he really does now. He used to do like full rehab. He actually did the open house. Now all he does is foundation issues. Now all he does is foundation work.
That's
He does some good stuff.
Ears.
Like what I've seen him do, he'll go out there, he'll take the big.
That's music to my ears when I ask somebody, "What do you do?" And they say, "We only do roofs or we only do plumbing." Like, cause most of these cats, we do everything.
Which means they don't do nothing. That means they just hire it all out. Somebody who tells you they do everything does nothing. You know why you don't want somebody who does nothing is you're going to be waiting. You're going to be waiting for a long time because they're going to be waiting for their person to come available. And then also, they're going to tax you because they got to make some money off of it and they got to pay the work.
Bring somebody that's partially qualified, somebody that's going to do a to A plus job. I don't want a C plus job, you know. And
right.
I mean, you're charging, and then I know immediately skill set to remedy it, or it looks good, and then I notice a lingering issue 2 months down the line when I put the property on the market and it's being inspected. And like I know one guy, and I think he has a very good judge of character. He used a guy to rehab the house. They did everything right other than addressing some of the foundation issues, and then they had some plumbing issues. And then when the inspector was in the house and he turned the water on, the pipe started to leak. And that happened during the inspection. So it's like the potential home buyer saw that. So, you know, that's an awkward feeling. So now you got to make them feel comfortable to know them that you actually remedy that issue before they buy the property.
Yes, very important. When you get people who do C plus work and charge A plus prices, you're probably going to get somebody who's not going to come back and fix it anytime soon. So you're going to spot issues, and then they're going to want to charge you to fix the stuff that they didn't even do right. Folks will charge you to fix the things that they did not do correctly on the price that you paid them. At least they'll try. So be leery of that. If you have a contract for somebody to do X and they do half of X, don't let them then charge you to complete X.
Not gonna make it seem like this is easy, but you know, hindsight is 20/20, and the advice that I can give y'all is use your common sense and what's the word? A lot of the things you do to judge somebody, pay attention to the red flags. Basically, like people when we date, we pay attention to all these red flags, or we are, but just the way they talk.
One red flag is bad Wi-Fi.
What'd you say?
I said one red flag is bad Wi-Fi because you're struggling right now, man.
Oh man, don't do me like that. But I had one guy. I was about to buy that deal that I was trying to buy in East English Village last year. That one had a foundation issue, but it wasn't really severe. So I had a few people looking at it, and then that's the thing. So this real estate stuff can be tricky. You learn through trial and error. You're talking to multiple people. You know, there's facts and then there's opinions, and it's like everybody has a different opinion sometimes. Like what's considered a lot of work to one person could be or just normal to the next person. Like that's about this house.
Yeah.
In 4235 because it needed like 50,000. You know, like that's not too bad. There was no foundation issues at all. It needed a full rehab, but it was a solid deal. And the one in East English had foundation issues. It's not like the wall was caved. It was like 3 different spots. It looked manageable. You know, I just wanted to get a second and third opinion on that, and I wanted to, you know, get an actual quote on what that would cost before going to the closing table. I wasn't able to do that fast enough, so I just backed out of the deal. But you know, some people see foundation and they just run from it. So then I tried to wholesale it to a guy or whatever, and he was telling me it can be done for $6,000 to $10,000, so that wasn't that bad. But it was just one of those situations where we got like a short time frame, and I just wasn't able to move fast enough, so I had to let it go.
Mm. Yeah, moving fast is ghetto, especially when you're moving around multiple thousands of dollars. A lot of people try to into a deal, and it's like, bruh, you know how hard I work to make this money? I'm not going to just rush and just throw it at
So
something without doing it. So don't let these folks rush you into a contract.
I had 2 deals like that in 1 week. Week, and I had a different approach on each. So that one, what was it? They wanted to close. I think they wanted to close in a week. So I went under contract thinking that by day 3, I could convince them to wait an additional 2 weeks. That for like 5 days straight, trying to convince them to extend it to a third, another week, which would be 2 weeks total. But because of that foundation or whatever, and then getting a few people out for quotes, you know, it just wasn't really like, it wasn't going to make sense, and I wasn't going to force myself into the deal. And they were too. So that's why sometimes you kind of want to pick the title. They were using their title company, and they're like, we're closing tomorrow. And I'm like, how are we closing tomorrow when I haven't even got closing docs? Like, I haven't even reviewed a HUD. Like, how are we literally supposed to close tomorrow when y'all haven't sent me the closing docs? So you can't let people try to force you into close, and they haven't done what they were supposed to do. So the closing docs, I'm pretty sure a lot of people know, but they also refer to that as the HUD statement or the settlement statement. The closing is considered the. So prior to you buying the property, there will be you to you will need to bring the closing. So you'll see all the fees that the title company charges. If you're using a lender, you'll know exactly what that lender is charging. You know, if you have to bring a down payment or if you're paying cash, all of that will be in the HUD statement. And you'll know how much you need to bring to closing, and then you'll have a bunch of documents you got to sign. And then, so they got a seller statement and a buyer statement. The seller signs the seller statement. The buyer signs the buyer statement. The seller may be using a realtor, or you may be using a realtor. You may be using a wholesaler. So all of those involved parties should be on the HUD statement. And you got to sign docs, and you can close remotely if you're out of state. And a lot of title companies are closing remotely or virtually because COVID is a factor, or you can sign in person. And one thing that's not really talked about that much, but it is one document that should be in the closing docs is the property transfer affidavit. So basically, when you buy the property, yes, that's a big deal. So most people don't talk about that, but that's kind of a big deal. So the property transfer affidavit is the form that is submitted to the county so that the county is aware that you are the new owner of this property, right? So not only do you get the deed, but you also want to file this so that then the county will be aware so that you will go on the tax records. Because basically, Wayne County charges, if you don't do it within a certain amount of days, they start charging like $20 or $10 a day or something like that. So that can add up. And then basically, you know, you want the mail to come to you. So like I sold my neighbor's 2-family about 3 years ago, and they were scared. Like, the guy isn't paying the property taxes, and they keep sending letters to me like, does he own the property? Didn't we sell it to him? And I'm like, yes, you sold it to him, but he never submitted the property transfer affidavit. So basically, you know, you get a deed with the property if you buy it free and clear, but you need to get a property transfer affidavit and file that with the county immediately so that they don't start taxing you by the day just for not submitting that information. So that's basically an incentive for you to help the county get in line with doing their paperwork, because, you know, local state governments and all of them, they're usually pretty behind on. But back to the houses. So,
indeed, man.
I had a deal. They closed a week, and that didn't really work. So I backed out, and then I had a second deal. He was on the same thing, but he wanted to do 2 weeks, like 3 weeks. So we didn't even go under contract because I was like, I was just in this similar situation a few days ago, and it didn't work in my favor. I didn't lose any money or anything, but it wasn't really like the ideal situation. So I'm like, in this situation, if we can't negotiate better terms in the beginning, then we just won't go under contract, and we didn't. So people be trying to rush. People be trying to rush everybody to close. So and then 3 weeks or a month go by anyway, and they go by anyway, and it's like you could have just waited.
Romeo, respectful. We got Wi-Fi situated because I can't hear what you're saying. It's breaking up every other word. Are you on the Wi-Fi right now? Man, we're going to wrap up this first, third, whatever number episode of the Detroit Real Estate Podcast. I only had an hour to go live. I got another call at 6. We're going to be talking to the Monopoly Bros about blowing up their brand. And if you guys want to blow up your brand, you want to take advantage of the business accelerator program that I have. The link in my bio. It's the top link. Also, check out the options course. Check out the options book. We blowing up. People are still making money in options. If you ain't making money in options, it's because you ain't dedicated and you ain't practicing. So dedicate yourself and practice and treat it like a job. You got to treat it like a job if you want to make some dough. I would let Romeo have some last words, but he just keeps spiraling out of control with this Wi-Fi thing, man. Next time, we got to work on – you can't go live on data. If you go live on data, it's going to jack up.
I got the Wi-Fi working.
But I do think this was a valuable information. You guys make sure you follow Romeo at Humble Young Boss. Well,
don't be treating me like Showtime at the Apollo, man.
I only have an hour allotted, and I kind of wanted to relax before I have.
You treating me like Showtime at the Apollo.
Nah, it was a good conversation. We'll have to jump back on.
Yeah, we can do that.
Maybe. We'll have to jump back on next tomorrow. Catch us every Wednesday at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're going to keep bringing you guys the Detroit real estate value and help educate you guys on real estate investing in general, because it doesn't just apply to Detroit. It applies across the country. My name is Charles Ogle.